Hello and welcome to Cycles of Time, your weekly guide to what's happening on Earth as we make our revolutionary journey around the sun. For time immemorial, our human ancestors have created myths and meanings to help us adapt and thrive as seasons change. Join me each week to explore the intersections of these ancient cycles, from the indigenous medicine wheel to the pagan wheel of the year, the Babylonian and Greek zodiac to the I Ching, the ancient Chinese book of changes. I'm your host, Allison Dale, and this is the Cycles of Time podcast. Hey everybody, happy Monday. Welcome to this week's episode of The Cycle of Time. It's a very exciting week for me this week. In this week's episode, I had the privilege of chatting with my friend Lisa Broggi, who is a friend of mine and a therapist from Santa Fe, New Mexico, and she integrates astrology into her practice. It's her birthday this week as well, so we got together and had a super fun conversation about the archetype of Taurus season, about May Day and Beltane, about her practice of astrotherapy and how astrology is affecting her personal life, and about the human design gate of the week, which is gate 24, the gate of rationalization, and that's the week she was born in. So I'm going to do a short weekly forecast this week with a few themes, and then after that we'll jump right into the conversation with Lisa. Just a few announcements before that. I would love to continue having guests on the podcast, and I have a few lined up, but I've realized it's really fun to have a guest on their birthday week, or at least during their birthday month, to be able to talk about how these archetypical themes of the cycles of the year show up in their lives personally. I know I started this podcast on my mother's birthday week, and then the week after was my dad's birthday, and it was fun to see how the sun transiting through a sign or a hexagram or a gate or a season shows up in somebody's life. So I don't have anybody lined up for Gemini season yet, and so if you are listening and you would be interested in being on the podcast and you're a Gemini, I'd love to talk to you and just do a short mini reading on the air to talk about how all of these themes are showing up. Also, I have loved all of the comments and shares that I've been receiving, so please keep that up and hit the subscribe button wherever you're listening to podcasts. It's also really helpful to get reviews on new podcasts to get them out into the world, so I would highly appreciate any 5-star review that you could leave, and thank you very much. Final announcement is that I have a Facebook group, Cycles of Time Facebook group, and it's starting to be a little more active. I'm posting some comments and some questions on there each week relating to the content of the podcast. And so if you're a listener and you're on Facebook, find Cycles of Time podcast group and just join the conversation. And now, without any further ado, let's jump into the weekly forecast of April 28th to May 3rd, 2024. All right, so the week's highlights are this Wednesday, May 1st, is May Day, also known as Beltane in the pagan wheel of the year. It is a cross-quarter day, the halfway point between the solstice and the equinox, and it means bright fire. Taurus season continues, and we're deepening into that energy of flowers and blossoms and blooms and rest. We are also starting the week with the sun in the gate of rationalization, which is gate 24, and this is known as return in the I Ching, which is all about resting and returning to yourself. Then over the weekend, the sun is transiting into the gate of receiving, which is gate 2. It's also known as the direction of the self, which is about being receptive to love and being just receptive to the world around you. Themes for this week are celebration of the returning sun with a Beltane celebration, a reflection on the power of work and workers, because on May 1st, it's also Labor Day or International Workers' Day, celebrated across the world. Another theme is returning home to yourself and surrendering to receive. The quote for the week that I found is, "Take rest. A field that has rested gives a beautiful crop." That's a quote by Ovid. So, as usual, you can take a look at astrosomatics.substack.com to find the written transcription of this podcast and also some images related, including an image of the Wheel of the Year, where it's showing that we're in the Gate 24 and Gate 2, Taurus season, Beltane season, and also kind of entering fire season in the whooshing cycle. Throughout spring, we've been in the season of wood, which is like a tree about upward growth from the ground up into the sky. Got a lot of energy in Aries season of just sprouting upward. And with the initiation of Beltane, of this cross-quarter day between the spring equinox and the summer solstice, we're initiating the season of fire. So we're not going to be deep into fire season yet. And in the Taoist whooshing cycle, between each season, Earth is the element that holds the between season time. And so there aren't really specific dates for these transitions between seasons in this Taoist system. But I do liken the Beltane day, this cross-quarter day, halfway point, and their association with fire in the European tradition to the beginning of fire in the whooshing cycle as well, at least where I am. And one thing I wanted to note about all that is that these seasons, depending on where you live, can be different. I am living again in New Mexico, up in the high desert, where the seasons seem to be quite on par with there's a lot of distinction to the four seasons here. But wherever you live, or even just within your own body, there's a transition between these different elements, between these different seasons, and it doesn't have to be happening at the exact same time. But in the Northern Hemisphere, in Northern Europe and in China, where both of these systems originated, this time between the spring equinox and the summer solstice are related to the returning of the sun in an earnest way. I know I have started to wear tank tops and shorts out on hikes, and so that really feels like, okay, I'm shedding the clothing. That means that it's a return of the season of fire. I've even felt hot a few times, but I know that that's not the case in the north of the US right now, where I have some friends that are very cold. So just wanted to reference that this is not a fixed system. But as far as the symbology of the different archetypes, we are entering the season of early fire, between wood and fire, where not only are we sprouting upward, but also beginning to branch outward. I don't know about you, but I definitely feel that in my body as well as in the world around me right now. There is an opening outward that's happening and bursting forth into May. It's crazy. Here we are in a whole new month, the 5th month of the year already. And May Day is an ancient celebration that was celebrated across England and Ireland, Celtic peoples in this season of the year, this cross-quarter day. And it means, like I mentioned earlier, bright fire. For them was the starting point of summer, where Imbolc back in February was the beginning of spring. And it's a celebration of the light and the growth to come. And that was associated with a lot of practices like fresh greenery being laid out and special baked goods being prepared. And on most Beltane celebrations, there was a lighting of the Beltane fire on the 1st of May, which recalled the growing power of the sun and gave an opportunity to cleanse and renew community, because it was a time when animals and people have been inside in Northern Europe, in Ireland, and in the Celtic people's lands, where they've been inside throughout the winter and spring, and it's now time to lead the cows out to pasture and to bring the people out into community celebrations. This fire was used to light the fires in everyone's personal houses and hearths, but it was a centralized fire where there were lots of joyous celebrations from the night of April 30th until through the day of May 1st to ring in this new season. You may be familiar with the maypole, the beautiful pole with lots of ribbons hanging off of it, and the dances that are done around the pole. It's a beautiful tradition associated with Beltane and May Day, as well as this Beltane fire. So let me know in the comments if you are celebrating and if this is part of your tradition to celebrate the return of the sun and summertime and late spring with May Day. May Day also is celebrated as Labor Day in modern times. And I think that that's interesting, being in Taurus season, the season of kind of the hardworking bull, because it's associated with work, money, and value. And Taurus is the natural ruler of the second house in the astrological chart. And that is the house of what we value and what is ours and the work we do in the world and money. I'm finding myself thinking of this rendition of May Day in connection with the pagan rituals of May Day as a celebration of the people, celebration of community. They are very different celebrations or very different holidays, but they do have that in common, that they're about the people, about people's work, about, the animals going out to pastures, the work that they're doing to contribute to society. So there's a certain amount of this contributive nature to May Day in the sense that of International Workers' Day as well. And I'm definitely thinking about it a lot right now, looking at all of the student protests that are happening and all of the business as usual that's being shut down around the nation in support of free Palestine. And I'm very inspired by what's going on right now as May Day is here and as we're celebrating the people of the world. It's thinking back to the time in 2011 when Occupy Wall Street was happening, thinking about just the 99% versus the 1% and how that is kind of always what, for the most part, mass protests are about, is the government, the people in power, not being aligned with the people who are on the ground, who are doing the work. And so this May Day, I just want to give a big shout out to everyone who is putting that kind of work in to make a more just and fair society. And I won't go too much further into it, but just really wanted to mention that on this May Day, I'm glad that fire is returning and that people aren't backing away from what they know to be right. And it's not just work in the sense of raising awareness. It is in the sense of really asking and demanding that these universities, these major businesses of Columbia and Harvard and these huge institutions divest from military industrial complex and the big companies that are profiting off of war. And so that, again, is aligned with May Day, with labor, with work, with value, and with Taurus season in that way as well. Taurus season is associated with the throat and with speech. And so free speech is such a huge issue right now. And the fact that a lot of people are standing up for free speech and are really advocating for that at this moment in time is very fitting. And we have to remember, looking back through history, I just did a post on Instagram about all of the Jupiter-Uranus conjunctions that have happened since 1941. And again, that just happened a couple weeks ago, and we're still in the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction energy right now. They're both slow-moving planets, so we are feeling that energy throughout this year, really. And that energy has brought, from all of the years that they've come together, in 1941, 1969, 1983, all of these years, there's a lot of evidence of people protesting for what they believe in. Lots of big rallies in the street, as well as massive breakthroughs in science and technology. And so I'll post that post on my Astrosomatics blog to take a look at the history of that. But what I learned from it in looking at all of these pictures and doing a lot of research on the different movements that have happened throughout all of these years is that protests work. They mean a lot. And even if it doesn't seem like it, like, because they always do disperse at one point and don't last forever, but an impact is made from using your voice and from speaking out for what you value. And that's something just really to keep in mind this year as we look at the beautiful parts of Taurus season. And they talk about flowers a lot, I know, but also thinking about Taurus being stubborn, knowing what they want, and being very clear about using the voice to enact what we value deep down. So thank you all for doing what you're doing. We are at a time in history where new concepts and new perspectives and new theories are rising to the top and confronting the powers that be. And it's really amazing to see that happening. A lot of people are feeling associations with the late 60s and the student protests that were happening against the Vietnam War, which was also a time when Uranus and Jupiter were together. So it is a time that it feels very powerful, where there is new perspectives being presenced. And that really relates to the gate that we're in right now. In the sun last weekend, just a couple days ago, transited from the gate of caring and nurturing into the gate of rationalization, or return in the I Ching. And this gate is really, like it says, is all about thinking rationally. And rationally doesn't mean thinking in the ways of like how things have always been. Rationalization is about innovation, actually, and it's about invention, and it's about this ability to bring new concepts to the forefront. Return in the I Ching it's symbolized by a thunder hexagram on the bottom and earth on the top. And it's really all about kind of a thunderous desire under the surface, allowing the earth to break open and spill apart and provide nutrients and resources to the community, to the rest, through what is coming from inside us. And it's also about returning to ourselves. Like I mentioned a little bit earlier, it's about coming home after being on a long journey through this spring, kind of coming back to ourselves and sitting in silence and seeing what comes up in that silence. It's also known as the gate of addiction, because when we come home to ourselves, it can feel kind of uncomfortable to be back in a place where we are in a quiet place. And it can feel comforting to go back to what we know and to go back to what has been done in the past. There's a certain addiction to that comfort and stability of something that has always worked before, or at least we thought it has. But as we can see in what's happening in the world and in a lot of people that I've talked to, their personal life, what we thought was working is actually not working. And there's a certain addiction to just going back to the status quo that we crave, right? But when we actually take the time to sit with ourselves and sit in silence and return to the place where we're always going to come back to, which is our own self, we're able to see a turning point a little bit easier. When we're surrounded by distractions or surrounded by the world around us, it can feel a lot easier to go back to a pattern that we've already been in. But when we sit in silence, in meditation, or just go to a place where there aren't as many distractions, I think sometimes it feels a lot easier to see a place where something can happen that's a little bit different. And we can not let, doubt cause us to argue or make claims. And by keeping still, we're able to, really get back in touch with what we truly value, a Taurus season theme, and not feel like we have to accept the way that things always are and always have been. It feels like right now in the world there is an incessant need to push and to consume, and there are so many things to be addicted to right now. But I find in my personal life that when I do come back to myself and be in silence, this gate is also known as the silent mystic, and to come back to that silent place is where insights usually come from, where inspirations normally come from, and not from when we're working too hard and continuing to push and get feedback and push and get feedback. So this week, the gate of rationalization is from today until Friday. And so throughout this week, it's a really good idea to try as much as you can to rest and to be in your own presence, the presence of your own thoughts and your own values, because there's so much to consume right now. And I just really feel it. I feel my phone whenever it's anywhere near me. It's like calling to me to see what the latest development on X, Y, or Z is. There's always something to read or a new breaking news story about what's going on. And that's not going to slow down. And so it's really just important in this week, after hopefully doing a little bit of caring for yourself and others last week, to take that and bring it into yourself and just sit with it. Just sit with your inner experiences and kind of not try to rush away from the discomfort that might come up in silence or from just being with yourself. And on Saturday, after we've gone through this gate 24, the sun is going to be transiting into gate 2, which is known as receiving, or the receptive feminine. And this is a beautiful gate because it is the first gate that has Earth as the lower trigram. So in the I Ching, there's 64 gates, and they're broken into 8 different trigrams that are stacked on each other in order to create the 64. So since the beginning of Aries season, for the past 8 gates, we have been in the lower trigram of thunder. And you've probably heard me talk about it if you've listened to the podcast, that it's something over thunder, mountain over thunder, water over thunder. And gate 24 is the gate of rationalization or return, is the last of the thunder gates. It's earth over thunder. And then on Saturday, when we move into gate 2, we are moving into the next 8 gates that will have earth as the lower trigram. And so a very earthy time of year. And the first of these, gate 2, is earth over earth. And earth, what it looks like is 3 broken lines. Again, there's broken and solid lines in the I Ching representing yin and yang. And so the gate 2, the hexagram 2, is earth over earth, and it is all broken yin lines. So it is the most yin of all of the hexagrams and all of the gates. And in that way, it's all about receiving, being receptive. And it's really nice for that to come after going inward and having that inner spark of thunder, that thing that starts something, and feeling like, okay, this isn't up to the world around me. This is up to me and whatever is inside me to spring forth, to bring my ideas and to allow them to come into the world through that process of refinement in silence and in returning to yourself. And then when we move in this weekend and into the beginning of next week into gate 2, it is now allowing ourselves to receive from the world around us, from everything that we've poured out and everything that we've initiated over the course of this spring. It's time to really just sit with what is and suspend our disbelief and believe that there is goodness that will come to us if we are open to receiving it. It's a big energy of surrendering and knowing that when we surrender, sometimes that's when what we need comes to us. And it's sometimes a very hard thing to do. We live in a very young culture, a very action-oriented culture. And so deciding to not take action and to sit in that receptivity is bold. It's a bold move. And so this week there's a lot of boldness in the simplicity. It's not a hugely active week ahead. We have, it's this similar to Beltane. It's letting ourselves out to pasture. It's letting ourselves outside of the confines of what we've believed is possible in the past, and allowing ourselves to be still long enough to allow something new, something that's never been thought of before, to arise out of the quiet, out of the silence, and then to receive from there what the world has to give back to us after we have been in that silence with ourselves. So that's the forecast for the week. Beltane on Wednesday, gate of rationalization from Monday until Friday, the gate of receiving on Saturday and Sunday. So it's a relaxed week. As tense as things might feel right now in the world, I hope that this can give you a little bit of a permission to sink into rest and relaxation, whatever that means for you. Just not trying to do too much or figure it all out right away, because that is not the energy that we're in at this moment. But just to listen to yourself and to others and to receive. So with that, I was so happy to receive a lot of wisdom from the conversation that I had with my friend Lisa, the astrotherapist. You, I'm sure, will receive so much from her as well. So here is that conversation. And thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for being my very first guest here on Cycles of Time podcast. I am here today with Lisa Broggi, who is a licensed marriage and family therapist based in Santa Fe, New Mexico. She has a master's in counseling psychology with a specialization in expressive arts therapy from the California Institute of Integral Studies, and she's an astrology enthusiast. She's a Taurus sun and moon and a Gemini rising, and she dabbles in all things archetypical in the name of self-exploration. So welcome, Lisa. Thanks so much for being my first guest here on Cycles of Time. It's so good to have you here.
Oh my goodness, thank you for having me. I'm a big fan, and obviously we're also friends, FYI, everybody. So it's very exciting to be here and to chat.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, Lisa and I are friends and neighbors. We met probably a little over a year ago in a coffee shop through a mutual friend here in Santa Fe who said, "Oh, you two both live in this neighborhood and also astrology." And from there we sat and talked for many hours, I think, on our first meeting about astrology. And since I've gotten to know you, it's been really fun to see just like the amazing way that you integrate astrology into your daily life and your community, and your Lisa's memory for people's placements and rising signs and sun signs and moon signs is kind of incredible. She has this like photographic memory for birth charts, I think.
That is true. It is a funny skill. It's like I put people in files in my head. I'm like, oh yeah, that's your moon, that's your sun. So yes, and I do just adore you. I feel like we can talk endlessly about astrology and human design and all the things. So I'm just happy to be here.
Yes, thank you so much. Yeah, so I guess, since we started with astrology in our personal relationship, it'd be good to start with astrology here today. Could you just tell me a little bit about your journey with astrology and also how you integrate it into your work as an astrotherapist?
Yes, okay. I know I was thinking about this preparing for coming on, and it's been a long journey, honestly. I mean, I was always interested in, astrology like back in the day when I was younger, but I only knew like sun signs, right? Which is what some might call lazy astrology, right? But I was like, oh, I'm a Taurus and you're a Pisces and all that. So I was interested in that for a long time, but it honestly wasn't until my Saturn return, actually, that I had an experience that pulled me in. And I'll just share that story really quickly. I was at my friend's birthday party, and her mom was like this budding astrologer, and she was printing out everybody's chart just for fun and giving like these mini readings. And so, everyone's having fun and giggling and just like she's reading the charts and it's all fun. And then she finally pulls up my chart And like her whole face drops and she's like, oh my God. And like it was like all the energy in the room stopped. And I was
Oh,
like,
no
what?
way.
Like, what? What are you looking at? And then, I found out she was basically looking at my 12th house because I have a crazy 12th house. I have my sun, my moon, my Venus, my Mercury, my Chiron. And so I think she was just like, oh my goodness, like how do I explain this to this young woman, right? So anyway, so that like triggered something and I was like, oh my goodness, like I have to figure out like what is this 12th house? Like why is this such a big deal? So that was my origin story of like falling down the hole. And then of course I was obsessed and I like had to learn everything. And I also want to say learning about my chart or like the 12th house felt like the most like validating thing I'd ever
Mm,
experienced,
mm,
right? And
yeah.
like I was already on the path to be a therapist at the time. And I'd been to lots of therapists and love therapy, but it really felt like learning about my chart was the ultimate like self-understanding. I felt like it validated, it explained so much of my life experience that I was like, if this is so valuable to me, like I feel like this could be so helpful for other people, right?
Yeah,
I know you can relate, right? I was like, oh my gosh, it
absolutely.
explains so much, and I just felt so seen. And then I became obsessed. And then I'm getting to how I brought it to therapy, I promise.
Oh, no
Basically,
worries. Yeah, I love this story.
I think it was so I was, studying astrology on my own, having fun. And then really it was the pandemic when Saturn entered Aquarius. Maybe you felt this too, where I got pretty serious about the study of astrology, right?
Yeah, I think a lot of people really got into it in 2020. There was more time then and just also wanting to know what's going on, right? Yeah.
Exactly. A lot of time to study. So got really into it. And then I started just kind of slowly introducing it to my therapy clients at the time. Like if anyone was curious, like I could look at your chart. And it was incredible. People were just like, oh my goodness, like, how do you know this? And I would just connect the dots of their stories in therapy with their chart. So that was kind of the origin of it. And then honestly, Uranus came from my natal sun, and then I just like my whole life blew up, and I I quit my clinic job. I moved to New Mexico, and I made Pink Moon Therapy, which is my astrotherapy business. So yeah, that's the origin story.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing all of that, those personal details and kind of how it resonated with your clients and with yourself. I mean, I think a lot of times that happens. It's just this aha moment, right? With astrology where there's one thing that really just hits in a way that something else hasn't. Yeah, tell me more about, I mean, I have so many questions based on all that, but tell me more about your 12th house experience. I know that, you mentioned that was the moment of the gasp at that party. So tell me more about what that feels like for you to have so many planets in the 12th house.
Yeah, definitely. The 12th house is definitely what brought me in, as I mentioned. And yeah, it really explains so much of my existence, honestly. And I told you this story before, but I'll say it again that yeah, I used to joke in my 20s that I was in hermit rehab. Okay. Like I was trying to overcome being such a hermit. And and I mean, I am a social person. I have Gemini rising, but there is this part of me that like loves to be alone, that I like spend a lot of time alone. I need to be alone. And when I learned that that's actually a big aspect of the 12th house, I was just like, oh my gosh, like that's crazy. That explains why I have this tendency. And it not only explained it, but it validated it and gave me permission of like, oh, actually, that's something I need to do in life. Because as I'm sure you know, with the 12th house, 12th housers do have to like isolate from time to time, kind of retreat and spend time alone. And I think a big part of the reason why that is because there's a lot of sensitivity with 12th house energies where like
Mm-hmm.
up all the energy in the room and you start feeling other people's feelings. And like, if you watch too much of the news, you start to feel weird because you just like absorb the suffering of the world. And so I think 12th housers have to retreat to actually access their own energy and to know what they actually think and feel. So that's just one little dose of like when something was explained to me and I was like, oh, I don't have to change this. Like this is actually part of who I am. And it's like I had a mentor who would say that your birth chart's like a permission slip. And I was like, oh, I get to be a hermit. Like I don't have to be in hermit rehab, you know?
Yes, yes, I love that so much, the permission slip. I've never heard that before, but I feel that that's really what a lot of astrology and all of human design, all of these kind of practices of just self-awareness are for me as well, as just really saying like, oh, once it's not like you're excusing it and being like, oh, there's like this disclaimer for the reason, but it is really just kind of like, no, it's written in the stars. And also to be able to see the good in it and see not to say the word hermit, right, might have such a characteristic about it in our society, like, oh, you don't want to be that guy hiding out in the woods in a cabin or whatever, and that's what a hermit is. But when you look at that word or that just that quality of being from another perspective, like the 12th house, I think, yeah, that it gives permission to really lean into it and see the beauty in what that is. So yeah, I love that so much. And I've been looking at your human design chart because this podcast, combines the I Ching and human design and the wheels of the year in all these different ways. And so later on in the episode, I wanted to get into this a little bit. But the gate that you were born in is also a little bit about that. It's a little bit 12th housey in the sense of returning to yourself, being in silence and learning from that. So we'll get into that a little bit later, but I think it's really interesting how that shows up
Ooh.
in your charts on multiple levels. Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah, that's
more
awesome.
more self-permission to hermit, it sounds like, ahead. Yes.
Yes, the brilliance and the genius in hermiting, which is,
Okay. Yep, I can't wait to
beautiful.
learn from you. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, beyond the personal, I mean, in your therapy practice, I'm just curious, how have you had some of these aha moments with some of your clients as well, or have you had any pushback to trying to introduce this into something that's kind of as codified as therapy? I'm interested. I know this is a fairly new discipline to combine therapy and astrology in the formal ways. I think it's been done for millennia, probably in a lot of ways of what therapy is. But I think in the formal setting, it's a fairly new concept. So I'm curious what your experience has been, both the pros and cons there.
So yeah, good question. The pushback is interesting. Yeah, there's still like a little bit of a stigma to using astrology in the therapy community. Like people might not take me seriously or be like, that's not real, that's pretend, like that's not ethical. But honestly, I haven't really, or at least not yet, knock on wood, experienced pushback, because what I've actually found is that I'm just attracting, this is very projectory, right? I'm just attracting the people who want that. Like they'll end up being like, oh my goodness, I was hoping that I could find a therapist who speaks this astrology language as me, because it really is a language, right? And then they seek me out and they find me. So I think it's working out so far that just like the people who are not interested are just not finding me, and that's great. The people who do want it love it and they feel really seen, or they're curious to learn more, right?
Oh, I love that. So do you do chart readings in your sessions, or is it a little bit more generalized and abstract than that, or how does it work?
Yeah, no, good question. Honestly, it's a little bit different with everybody depending on how much astrology they already know, right? Because some people are coming to me, like I said earlier, they want somebody who speaks that same language because it's a big part of their life. They're like, oh my God, I'm going through my Saturn return and it's so crazy. And I'm like, oh, I know what that means. And they love that, right? And we can speak that language. And then there's other people who really are just don't know a lot and want to learn about astrology. So it kind of depends. I mean, I certainly bring in the birth chart. Like I study it myself before starting with somebody. And then if they're new to astrology, I might teach and explain things, or it might just be woven in as we go along.
That's so awesome. I know that in my experiences with therapists and counselors, I would love to have someone who really understands the language that I'm speaking. Because sometimes I find myself, because I'm so invested in this language for my own personal support, I'll get on a call with my therapist and I'll kind of find myself using half the session to explain what something means. And I would love to just have that commonality of language. So I think that's amazing that people are finding you who resonate with it. And I know there's a lot of people out there these days. There's been kind of a renaissance in this world of understanding astrology or being curious about it. And did you see that article it came out like last week from The Cut about why women are so obsessed with, the moon? Did you see
Oh,
this article?
what did it say?
It was It was kind of snarky. It was a little bit just attributing it to the woo, right? And a lot of people, a lot of astrologers that I follow, really had a lot of pushback on that. As far as like, wait a second here, it just felt very kind of like, yeah, just dismissive of this fact that, so many women's cycles are aligned with the moon, and, the moon obviously affects the tides, and we are made of water. And they were trying to like reduce it back to that just as like a basic scientific explanation. But there still is that in, the overculture, this kind of
Yeah.
dismissiveness. And so that's why I asked about the pushback. But
Yeah, and that's always going to exist, right? For sure. And I make a joke. I say that science has a crush on magic. Just want to put that out there, right? Like science is always trying to explain it.
mm,
And I will just add to that real quick. I do think, I know we talked about Saturn entering Aquarius and that being huge. I do think I've even noticed since Pluto really entered Aquarius that the people have been reaching out to me more. Like, hey, I was looking for somebody who combines astrology and therapy. And I think that's just going to keep exploding as we go deeper into our Aquarian Pluto era.
I agree. You're on the cutting edge. Yeah, yeah. Aquarius is the sign of astrologers and astrology, and kind of
Right.
that lifting off of the earth into the sky and having, yeah, that more of a universal perspective. So I think you're definitely ahead of the curve there. And I anticipate seeing more people in that realm kind of flourishing over the next several years
Well,
for
and your
sure.
podcast is part of
Yeah.
that too. We need you. You're helping teach
Bringing it all
us.
together.
So thank you.
Yeah. Just grounding into these cycles. Oh, well, thank you. So, yeah, since we're still on the topic of astrology, I wanted to mention that it is your birthday. It's Lisa's birthday this week. So, happy
Thank
birthday.
you.
So happy to have you here on your birthday week so that we can really dive into the archetypes that are surrounding the week. So, as you know, each week here is a kind of a forecast from Monday to Sunday, and kind of which areas of the wheel of the year are falling into that week. And so this week is all about you. We've got Taurus energy, we've got gate 24 in human design. It's May Day this week, so there's a lot of things happening, and it's all surrounding your birthday. So I'd love to kind of dive into how you've experienced these various archetypes, and starting with Taurus because you're so familiar with astrology. You have a Taurus sun and moon, and so Taurus, I'm sure, is quite relevant in your chart, having known that sun sign from an early age. But can you share a little bit about your relationship with Taurus as an archetype?
Yeah. Well, so yes, I am very super Taurus. That is true. Yeah, I mean, and being born on Beltane, I think you like maybe referenced that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Your birthday is May 1st, and it's May Day or Beltane in the pagan wheel of the year. And yeah, does that have any significance to you?
I didn't actually even know that about my birthday was Beltane until a couple years ago because I like didn't grow up with any pagan kind of magic stuff. But I really love the tradition, right? I think of Taurus season as being about like fertility and new life, right? Like plants blooming or planting the seeds and all this stuff. Like it's very earthy. I mean, literally, I mean, Taurus is an earth sign, but
Hmm.
we think of the earth, right? And it's animals and plants and I'm a big fan of those things as a Taurus, right? Uh,
Absolutely.
yeah,
You've got an amazing cat, amazing
love
plants.
my
I've certainly
cat.
met them.
And yeah, I mean, I think also the beauty. I mean, Taurus is connected with like beauty, like the beauty of the earth and the world and the sensory stuff. In fact, I actually get a little sensory overstimulated, which I'm like, is this because I'm a double Taurus, right? But just, Taurus archetype is very related to, yeah, the sensual, like the senses. And that's a big part of my life, just like moving through the world, experiencing it on a tangible level. Although I think it is a little bit complex here because my Taurus is in my 12th.
Right.
So sometimes it can also be a little intangible, but that's a whole different story, right?
That's
Um,
interesting. Yeah. I mean, just the experience of the material world through a kind of immaterial area of your chart. Yeah. I could see
yeah.
that being but the senses, don't have to be so concrete, right? It's like we can experience our senses in ways that are not necessarily like tangible or put into words. And yeah, I definitely see you as a sensory person, you wear very soft clothes, and every time, I give you a hug, it's very soft, and your home is very nicely curated and beautiful, and definitely see the Taurus kind of exuding out from you.
Yes. Oh,
So,
and I want to feed you yummy snacks and
oh,
chocolate.
always good snacks. Yes, yes, good, amazing platters. Yes, yeah,
Right. No, absolutely. So yeah, I definitely relate to being a Taurus. I also think with the Taurus archetype, tell me what you think. It's like a stabilizing energy, right? If like Aries is the like sprouting out through, into new life and it's like birth, and it's almost like Taurus is then a little bit this stabilizing energy that's like, okay, how do we make this real? And I do relate to that. I really do tend to, for better or for worse, right? Because every zodiac sign obviously also has its shadow side or like more challenges. Is
hmm
like I do seek stability and calmness and like stabilization, kind of. Yeah, how do you feel about that concept with Taurus?
absolutely. I mean, the way I've looked at the wheel of the zodiac as kind of the life cycle lately. I've been really like focusing on that. And Aries is kind of like the infant who's coming into the world and is just like new to everything and just like, kind of crying and raging and laughing and just like everything is new. And then you get into Taurus, which would be like toddlerhood and early childhood, as the second stage of life, and it is again more craving of stability, like wanting to be close to something that feels familiar, whether that's the environment or a caregiver, and also that exploration of the sensory world. Like I think of just toddlers and young children kind of putting everything in their mouth and touching everything and just like being amazed by a new sight and just really using all of their senses. And so I definitely see like, yeah, the sensory and the stability as a part of the Taurus archetype, just kind of using that frame of reference. Yeah.
Totally. And actually,
Yeah.
you just made me think. And I don't know if I read this from you, but yeah, that makes the toddler makes so much sense because think about it, like toddlers are like, this is mine, right? They're like getting very into like, that's my toy, right? And
Totally.
Taurus is also associated with like my possessions, right? Or
Right. Yeah, it's the I mean, yeah,
what is
the mind.
mine?
Aries is me, Taurus is mine, right? It's
Ah,
that, yeah, it's really like thinking about, right.
yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating to see that. I definitely don't want to offend anybody who are like, "Oh God, toddlers, the terrible twos," but I love toddlers personally. I just think they're just like the most amazing age of life to just because everything is new and you're just discovering everything with every possible sense. And yeah, I've always had Taurus in my life, Taurus friends, and been so, yeah, so drawn to that stability and kind of concreteness that, it can be seen as stubborn sometimes. Do you feel like you resonate with that? The
Uh-huh.
stubborn side of Taurus?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, like changing oh, and the other thing I also like to say about Taurus is that like they can't be rushed. I think that's part of the stubborn. It's like I'm gonna do it on my own timeline. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's related to the earth too, right? Like you
Right.
can't rush the process of things like coming into bloom. It's gonna happen in its own time, right?
Totally. I love that. Yeah. Yeah. Flower will bloom when it blooms and then and then it wants to sit there as the bloom. It doesn't want to rush past that point either. Like I'm looking around town and seeing just these amazing flowering trees everywhere and I'm like, "Oh, those aren't going to be there soon." So it's like this time of year to like really luxuriate in the beauty and in the senses that are suddenly available after a long winter and before a hot summer. It's like this beautiful moment in time that in the pagan tradition in Beltane and May Day are about that. They're kind of about leading your livestock out of, they've been inside all winter and sitting in their stables and the people have all been inside. And so May Day is all about this time of kind of coming out, going to pasture, getting into community. There's a May Day fire, a Beltane fire that's lit that lights all the hearths, traditionally all the hearths in the villages from the single fire. And it's this kind of return to the season of fire after being in a season of kind of like Aries is associated with wood in the Chinese Taoist wuxing cycle. This is another cycle I'm kind of referencing
Yeah, no,
here,
tell me, tell me.
but that it's early spring is kind of wood. It's like growing upward, and then you get into the season of fire, which we're kind of transitioning into now with May Day being kind of this first day of the fire, and it's all about kind of like going outward, growing. It's not just growing up anymore. It's now growing out and welcoming in the bees to pollinate and welcoming in community and that kind of thing. So it's a beautiful day, beautiful time of year.
Yeah, new life, fertility, all of that. So. Ooh.
Yeah, you mentioned something when we were talking about your only association with Mayday. I'm curious about it.
Yeah, I mean, I remember learning, and I thought it was so funny that I think it's actually April 30th and then overnight to May 1st that
Mhm.
they're celebrating fertility, but it's like this wild party in the village or whatever, where people are drinking and eating and being really Taurus indulgent, honestly. But they're also just having a bunch of sex in the woods, literally,
Right.
like to honor procreation and fertility. So that was one tradition that I read that I thought was kind of amazing. And I mean, yeah, beautiful. Like humans enjoying the sensuality and literally honoring this different state this next season by literally having sex in the
Getting
woods.
down. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
why not? I mean, it's part of it, right? It's like there's sensuality, that word I think was co-opted as kind of like sensual sexual for a long time, and I feel like more people are now bringing the sensual back to the senses. Like, oh, it's about the senses and in all the ways, right? In not necessarily a sexual way, but that's also there too, right? Like the fertility and the kind of coming out of our shells season. So, yeah. Speaking of fertility, do you have any projects that I know that May Day can be a time to initiate new projects in the sense of expanding that fertility out from the literal to what would you like to see bloom over the
Ooh,
course of this year?
like in my life, you mean?
Yeah, in your life.
Oh, that's such a fun question. Honestly, this is so specific, but it's astro related. But I've really become obsessed with Lilith, Black Moon Lilith, the
Mm,
archetype. And it's a placement in a birth chart. It's not a tangible placement, but it's an important placement. And I'm really wanting to create Taurus birth, some kind of offering that's connected with Lilith, like teaching, helping people understand this archetype. So yeah, that's something I'm feeling excited
cool.
about. Thanks for asking. It's actually fun to say it out loud.
Great. Yeah, I think that's a big part of it right now.
Yeah.
Like Taurus actually is associated with the throat in the body, the shoulders and the throat, but it's associated with speech in that way, kind of like similar with the toddler analogy, being able to vocalize and say what you want for the first time, right? In the wheel of the year. But yeah, in the body, there's every sign is associated with a different part of the body, and Aries is the head all the way down to Pisces is the feet. But so Taurus is the kind of lower jaw and throat and associated with speech, so it's cool to speak out your visions this time of year and speak out what you want to see be fertile, right? So I'm so happy to
Yeah.
hear about that. Yeah, I'm really excited to dive into Black Moon Lilith a little bit more myself. That's
Oh yeah,
really cool.
happy. Love to chat with you about her. But yeah, thanks for letting me speak that out loud.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I love that you're speaking about work as well because, May Day is about kind of the beginning of summer and traditionally like the beginning of the summer farming season when animals went out to pasture. And then in modern times, May Day is about International Workers' Day. It's like labor movements and it's about being recognized for the work that we do. So I don't know if that feels relevant to you at all being born around this time or if that ever came up, but I do see you referencing your work and having a strong passion for your work.
Yeah, thanks for that reflection. Yeah, what is it called? It's called the
International Workers' Day?
International Workers' Day. Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember somebody naming this to me a long time ago in a internship, and I felt like I loved that. I was like, oh, it's just honoring of the people, right?
Right. Yes.
I
Yeah.
feel like is an awesome energy. So I'm honored to embody that energy. I love humans.
Great. Yeah, I could tell. Well, moving on a little bit from Taurus, another cycle of time that I talk about here on the podcast is the I Ching and the human design system, which are similar. The human design system has 64 gates that are traceable back to the I Ching, 64 hexagrams, and the sun is transiting through each of these throughout the year. There are about 5 or 6 gates per astrological season. So I know we've spoken in the past about human design a bit. We're both projectors in that system.
Mhm.
Just diving into the gate that you were born in. When you were born, the gate was in hexagram 24. And so you're having kind of your solar return to hexagram 24 this week. Do you know anything about hexagram 24 or gate 24?
I just know the title, so I'm really excited to learn from you. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. What is the title that you've heard?
Rationalization, right? Yeah, which I was like, ooh, I don't know how I feel about that word.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting. I think with human design, comparing human design to the original text of the I Ching, in my studies lately has been really interesting because sometimes they're like right the exact same thing. They're like nurturance and caring was last week, so it's like, oh, those are very similar. I see how those are similar, but in for 24, rationalization in human design is the same as the hexagram return in the I Ching. So it's quite I mean, for me, return and rationalization feel a little bit different, but when you get into them, you can kind of unpack how those might be similar. But I'm curious, just like off the bat, based on these words, how those land for you.
Yeah, I mean, initially, again, because I don't know much or really at all. Rationalization, I was like, oh my goodness, my mind, I'm so like cerebral. I'm Taurus, which is the body, but I'm also Gemini rising. So I was like, oh, is this is making me think of my mind and like my mental faculties. And then the word return, I haven't heard that one. I'm just, yeah, I don't know. I like that word better, to be honest, than rationalization.
Yeah, right. Yeah, rationalization can feel kind of like I know what you mean. I mean, it's I think ration is a great thing,
And
but
heady,
it feels
very
yeah all in your head, right? Which is not really what this is about. I would say that Gate 24 rationalization or return is really about returning home to yourself and kind of being with yourself in order to learn from your own thoughts. And so last week we were in the Gate of caring, which was kind of about it was about self-care, but it was about kind of more external things, caring for other people, caring for yourself on like a physical way. But this week is kind of all about getting back to your inner world and returning back to that place that we always return to. I've also heard it described as the silent mystic and also as the inventor. There's people who have taken this in, the gene keys is another system that's similar to human design. It was Richard Rudd who formulated the gene keys, studied with Rauhuruhu in human design, and kind of split off from there. So in his gene keys, it's a lot more about kind of like different levels of this energy. So you can have like a shadow level. And for him, the Gate 24, the shadow level is addiction in the gene keys. And then the gift level is innovation and kind of invention. And then the city or the kind of more transcendental upper level of frequency is silence. And so I was reading about that earlier today. I know these are a lot of kind of just like adjectives and keywords floating around, like how do they all relate together? But I'm curious, do any of those adjectives kind of speak to you at all?
You know what I'm going to say? It's just making me think of the 12th house so much. Oh my goodness, from the addiction. I mean, that's very 12th house is the full spectrum is like addiction to like, yeah, like being the monk on the top of the mountain who's like being silent and alone, right?
Right.
So I mean that kind of energy is already been like surrounding me with my astrology, so it doesn't surprise me to hear that that's part of it,
Right,
right?
to have your son in that gate. Yeah, yeah, it did feel very resonant with what you were talking about earlier. And I read a quote earlier today that said, addiction is a circle, or addiction thinks in a circle, and invention speaks in a spiral. And kind of thinking about like addiction on the same plane as innovation and invention, but like the difference is that addiction, you're just kind of doing the same thing over and over again because you know what feels good. But invention is about kind of, again, that returning to yourself and finding by returning to yourself and being in silence and not necessarily always going out to find the thing that feels good. You're able to kind of see the place where you can make a slight pivot or a slight change or see like a gap between the cycles. And then that ends up becoming this spiral of innovation, of new ideas coming forward. And yeah, I thought that was a really beautiful idea with this gate.
I love that. Oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. So it's like, yeah, breaking the cycle and then like creating or finding this new thing. Um,
Right.
It also makes me think about like addiction. If you're thinking about like substances, it like dampens, what do I want to say? Like, I think that one of the reasons why 12th house is related to substance is because people are sensitive, right? I mentioned that earlier. So they're like trying to turn down the dial of what they're feeling and picking up on. Whereas if, the opposite of addiction is just to like be a clear channel and to be feeling all the things. And that's when you're like having the realizations or sitting in the silence and feeling. Does that make sense?
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. You just spoke to so much of what I've read about this gate, particularly this hexagram. Yeah, in that returning, it's kind of like come home, and if you are it can be scary to come home to ourselves, right? After being in you think about all of Aries season or you're kind of going out there and you're just like, okay, let's charge, let's go. The world is, I'm ready to seize the day, right? And then kind of beginning of Taurus season, middle of Taurus season, we are coming back to that place of stability, like you mentioned, and we're coming back to a place of stopping and smelling the roses. But, I think that returning to that place of you have to be still to have like a butterfly land on you, right? Or you can't be just kind of darting about to all of the different things, and to be in relationship with the natural world in the way that Taurus season is so associated. I think that coming back, returning to that place
Mhm.
is what we need to do, right? But it can be scary. It can be like, oh God, now it's too quiet here. There's too much of my own
Mhm.
stuff going on here. And so it could be a natural tendency to want to fill that up with substances or whatever kind of distractions that we become addicted to. And there's so many things to possibly be addicted to these days.
Yeah.
To stay away.
Our phones being the biggest one, right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. What's your relationship with your phone? Do you
Um,
have a good one?
I'm addicted, aren't we all? I'm addicted to
Oh
my phone.
my.
I am. But also there's a lot that I also get out of it. I love to be connected to people. I love to learn. Like I even social media, I know it can be really harmful, but like I'm always learning something. Um, anyway, so yeah,
Yeah.
I like that you actually brought up the nature because I have been wanting to have more intention, and maybe this is that silence that we're talking about for this gate. Like the other day, I finally went on a walk outside by myself, and I
Uh-huh.
sometimes I do my meditation when I walk, but I decided to do my meditation before I left so that I could actually just be just completely like taking in my surroundings and just actually enjoying my walk. And I felt like I don't know if this is related, but like all these epiphanies actually during that walk as I was just truly being silent and just taking in my immediate environment. Um, and I was
Wow.
like, oh, because I have been told this silence thing with this gate, I believe.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, it is nature. And that's very Taurus 12th house. It's very much sounds like this 24 gate for me. So this is like an awesome reminder. Like I really do need that. Put down the phone, get outside,
Right.
go be with nature and sit in my silence and see what comes through.
Right. Yeah, that really is what this gate is all about, is being with yourself and being in the silence just long enough to notice where that cycle of that kind of habitual cycle of thought is happening again. And I think that, the longer you're in silence or the more you're actually away from the distractions, the easier it is to see that place where you could change it from a circle to a spiral, or kind of move through a pattern that you've been in, right? So
Mhm.
that's really cool to hear that you experienced that
Yeah.
on that walk, and
I think-
definitely recommend it.
Mhm. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like you're inspiring me right now to play with that more.
Oh, beautiful.
Mhm.
Do you have a relationship with silence, and does it feel comfortable for you in silence, or
Well, again, I like to be alone. So that's one version of silence for me. But I do think a lot. I mean, I actually
yeah.
am natally Pluto opposite my Mercury, so there's a lot that goes on in my mind. I think honestly, I need more silence. I'm taking this as inspiration for that to take the time. Because again, I like to be alone, but am I truly being like quiet and tapping in, or am I continuing to distract myself like we all do, whether it's my phone or whatever, right?
Totally. Absolutely. I am 100% there with you. Yeah, my unconscious moon is in 24. So it's even a little more hidden, but I also feel this energy a bit. It's interesting to think about just these singular sun gates because, in human design, it's like, okay, and in astrology too, the sun is, like you said, lazy astrology, just looking at just the sun sign because it got so kind of just stereotyped in newspaper horoscopes for like the last century or whatever. But I do think that for me, like returning to the sun and just looking at the singular placement is nice to return to, because what I've found so far is that it does feel resonant with people, even if it's not the full picture, right? Like obviously where your Pluto is, where your Chiron is, where your Mercury, Venus, everything makes a lot of a big difference on how your full personhood shows up. But I think that it's cool to see that the sun gate in and of itself is something that feels relevant to you as well. So
Oh
yeah.
yeah, I'm taking it
Yeah.
in. Thank you. I love your wisdom of these things. I know astrology really well, but that stuff's all quite new to me. So I love it.
It's really fun to be in conversation. So I looked at your chart, like I mentioned, and saw that you were born right after a new moon. So your moon and sun are very close together, which is why you have the moon and sun both in Taurus. But your moon is not in gate 24. It's actually in gate 2, which is the gate that the sun is going to be transiting into on Saturday of this week. So we're going from the 24 into the 2. And gate 2 is the pure yin gate. It's made up of all broken lines in the I Ching. And it's a fully like earthy gate. And it's known as receiving, or like the receptive feminine. And so I just wanted to kind of mention that to you, not to go too far into it, but to look at kind of these two different versions of a Taurus archetype, as far as that seem fairly similar. You know, there's one that's going inward and self-reflection and silence. And then the second hexagram, or the second gate where your moon is yeah, kind of about, it's also known as the gate of the direction of the self. So they're right next to each other. They have similar energies, but I'm curious about how you relate to your moon being in Taurus as different from your sun being in Taurus, and if that receptive quality has any
Ooh, oh my gosh.
lands at all.
So many thoughts here. Well, hold on. So first question you said, well, I love the word receiving, by the way, especially as a therapist. I feel like that's something a lot of us struggle with. So yeah, I'm taking that in. What does that mean exactly? And the yin, I sometimes actually feel like I'm way too yin, to be honest. But like I need more yang in my life, but also that's not totally true, because what we just said, I need to slow down, be quiet, stillness, all of that. But how I relate to being a Taurus moon different from the sun. I mean, oh my goodness, to bring it back to astrotherapy, actually, I do think the moon, I'm curious your thoughts, is one of the absolute most important aspects of the chart to understand somebody.
Yeah.
Because I view the moon as like related to how we process emotions and like what we need to feel safe and well. And also it can be related to like our deepest defense mechanisms and like what we use to self-soothe, right?
Right.
So I definitely relate to my Taurus moon. I feel like it's again that safety, that stabilizing. Like I need to feel that stability. That's something that I really crave, to feel safe. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I always talk about feeding your moon, which maybe is that being receiving? I'm not sure, but
That's beautiful. Yeah, I like the idea of feeding your moon. It's a little bit more of a hidden aspect of ourselves. It's not our consciousness, right?
right.
It's our embodiment and our emotions, and which is why full moons can feel so intense in both exciting and kind of hard ways, right? It's just because it's this reflection of like, oh, there it is showing up in its full face. But yeah, I love feeding your moon. Can you explain that a little bit more? What do you
Yeah,
mean
I
by
mean, to
that?
bring it, and I feel like I didn't totally answer your question here, but I think it's still interesting. Like I name with clients to feed your moon, because you really do need, you look at your moon sign and the house to look at what are the things that you need to feel safe emotionally well. Honestly, like the moon gives you clues about your ultimate personalized self-care stuff, right? So if you have like a Taurus moon, maybe some of your self-care is like eating snacks and being cozy on the couch, or literally taking a bath, or like if your moon is in Gemini, maybe your self-care is actually more about chatting with a friend or reading a book, right? These Gemini.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to look at the
Mm-hmm.
sign of your moon to figure out what are the things you could do to feed your moon. What is your moon again?
Libra.
Libra moon. So how do you feed your Libra moon? I'm going to throw it back at you. How do you do it?
I have never really thought about feeding my moon, but I do like in thinking about this receiving quality. It's kind of like, yeah, it's the moon is known as a feminine receptive luminary, whereas the sun is the more kind of like it is the direction and the light and the kind of a little bit more active, right? And so, when you feed something, you should be receptive to what you are going to feed it or how it's going to be fed. And yeah, I don't know. What would you say about Libra?
Yeah, I love a Libra moon. Such a lovely moon. All the moons are lovely, obviously. But I would say just to throw out some casual stuff, to feed your Libra moon, it's like, well, certainly being relational. Like Libra is such a relational sign, so connection. Also Libras loves the arts and beauty, like going to a museum or even learning, reading, like that Libra. People forget that Libra is like an air sign that also like loves to the philosophical learnings and such. Also, like Libra, like Taurus, we both have indulgent moons, let's be real. Yummy food, indulging in things that just like taste good, like luxurious things, right?
Oh, yes. Oh, totally.
Yeah, I'm sure I could think of more.
Right, Venusian. We both have, yeah, the
Yes, yeah, the Venus.
Venusian. They're both ruled by Venus,
Yeah,
so that makes a lot of sense. I see why we like to
yeah.
hang out and eat snack platters.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
we're great at
absolutely.
that together.
Yes, definitely. Beautiful. Thank you for that. I really appreciate that. I will think about feeding my moon more and receiving it with a little bit more, like, yeah, I love all the things that you mentioned, definitely.
Yeah. Well, and one other thing I say with the moon is like if you're feeling off, like if you're like, oh, why do I feel strange? Like literally checking in. Am I not feeding my moon? Have I been like neglecting my moon? I guess is kind of the opposite of feeding your moon. And that can be really helpful for just getting, for your mental, emotional well-being.
Right, right. Yeah, I've heard of the moon as related to the mother or, the mother-child relationship. How do you feel about that? Do you think that that is
Yeah.
how that shows up? Or I mean, it feels similar to what you're saying about
Yeah. Whether it's
the nourishing and receiving as a kind of mothering child type of relationship anyway. But
totally. Yeah,
yeah,
I think and sometimes the moon can literally represent like your mother or like clues about your childhood. But yeah, I think it certainly is related to like what you need for mothering to mother yourself, right? I think a lot of therapy and such is like learning how to parent yourself, right? So
right.
I think your moon holds a lot of information around that. So don't forget your moon. Feed your moon, everyone.
Oh, beautiful. That is lovely. Thank you. So I feel like I just had like a mini astrotherapy session and I can apply it to the rest of my life. Thank you so much. It's
I'm
beautiful.
learning so much from you about the human design. It's so fun.
Yeah, it's a good interchange. This has been so great. I think that we've kind of wrapped up all of the pieces of the wheel of the year that I wanted to talk about as it relates to your birthday, and just wanted to give you a big happy birthday blessing, solar return blessing for this week. And do you have any big plans for your birthday?
I am actually having a dance party and I hope you're coming. But for the actual day, I'm hoping to have a little nature excursion, something just very Taurus, honestly, something calm. And then eating good food at night, which is feeding my moon, yummy, delicious food.
Beautiful. Be in some silence, eat some good food, and then have a dance party.
Dancing
That
to
sounds
music.
fantastic.
Also, that's a very Taurus thing. That's part of the sensory, right? Like,
Absolutely. Can't forget the ears.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Oh, it's perfect for you. Yes, I love
Oh,
this.
yeah.
It's such a great example of how you can really just lean into your birthday and look at all of these different pieces for how it fits together and give yourself all of it as a gift to start your year off right. So beautiful. Well, do you have any final thoughts or words here?
Um,
I'd love to hear how people can find you, work with you.
I mean, yes, Astrotherapy, I'm a big fan, and I hope that it continues to grow. Thank you for having me on here. Yeah, my website is pinkmoontherapy.com. I'm on Instagram and TikTok, and my handle is just Pink Moon Therapy. And yeah, I work with folks. I do the astrotherapy. I wanted to add, I've also started doing some coaching where I'm just kind of teaching people about their charts. So it's less about the therapy and more about just going into the chart and learning about transits and what's going on, and just a lot of teaching. I've been taking on that role too. So
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Well, we'll link Pink Moon Therapy in the show notes, and you can follow Lisa on Instagram or TikTok as well. She does beautiful insights every so often, videos about the moon or different placements, and it's really fun to follow. So I highly recommend looking her up. And yeah, thank you so much for being here as this first guest. It's been so fun talking to you.
Oh my goodness, I'm so honored. I love your podcast. I love what you're doing, and I really do learn so much every time I speak with you. So thank you. I adore you.
Same here.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thanks so much. Have a beautiful birthday week ahead and a beautiful rest of your day. And we'll see you again soon.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Right. Bye. All right, so there you have it. A beautiful conversation with Lisa Broggi. Be sure to look her up at pinkmoontherapy.com or on Instagram or TikTok. And I look forward to talking to you all next week about more about Gate 2 and being receptive and receiving. So I hope you can lean into the silence and the wisdom of yourself this week. I know I'm going to go on a lot of hikes and be in the beautiful nature. And I'd love to hear in the comments how you are going to spend your week ahead. Again, if you get any value out of this podcast, I would love it if you'd click subscribe or like or comment or share it with a friend who might benefit. Thanks so much, and I'll see you again soon.